Hello, you guys, and thank you so much for clicking on this video, and welcome you to the 13th tense. So, the topic of our lesson today is advanced contract reading. Here's what exactly you will learn today: how to read and understand complex contracts with confidence, 12 key vocabulary words with phonetics, grammar, passive voice, relative clauses, and formal linking words, and how to identify operative provisions, interpret archaic legal language, and rewrite it in a plain English if you need to. Хвилинка організаційних моментів. Ви можете знайти цей воркшіт та набагато більше освітнього контенту в нашому телеграм-каналі та інших соцмережах. Ми всюди підписані 10 Tense. Відповідно, ви можете відсканувати цей QR-код і вас перенесе в наш телеграм-канал. So, let's go. Let's start with a little vocabulary part. Operative provision. So, operative provision is the main substantive clause of a contract that creates rights or obligations. The operative provision requires the supplier to deliver the goods within 30 days. Yeah. And by the way, you guys, you do not need to rush through the vocabulary. You can pause the video, take your time, read it, understand it, look up some more examples if you really need it. That is okay, yeah? The next one is recital, an introductory clause explaining the background and purpose of the agreement. So the recitals set out the context for the parties' agreement, but are not usually binding. Whereas, a formal word used in recitals to introduce background facts. All in big, all in capitals, whereas the company wishes to appoint the consultant to provide advisory services. Subject to, conditional upon, limited by another provision or a condition. Payment is subject to receipt of a valid invoice. Notwithstanding, it is a bit mouthful, it is a bit long, but I believe in you guys. Notwithstanding, despite, regardless of another clause or provision. Notwithstanding any other provision of this agreement, either party may terminate on 30 days' notice. Pursuant to, in accordance with, as required or authorized by. Pursuant to clause 5, the client shall pay the fee within 14 days of the invoice date. In accordance with, following the rules, instructions, or conditions set out by someone or something. The contractor shall perform the services in accordance with the specification. Hereunder, under this agreement, under the terms set out above. All rights and obligations rising hereunder shall be governed by English law. Thereof, of that, relating to the thing just mentioned. The title to the goods and all risk thereof shall pass on delivery. Save as, except as, unless otherwise provided by. Save as expressly set out in this agreement, no warranties are given. Operative, having legal effect, the binding, substantive part of a document. The operative part of the deed begins after the recitals. Formal linking. Words and phrases that connect clauses in legal documents logically. Words like pursuant to, subject to, and notwithstanding are examples of formal linking in contracts. Here's a little pro tip for you. Legal contracts often use archaic or formal linking words that you will not ever find in everyday English. The most important skill is learning to translate these into plain English as you read. For example, notwithstanding means despite or regardless of. Pursuant to, in accordance with, or under. Hereunder, under this agreement. Try substituting the plain English equivalent mentally as you read. The clause will immediately make much more sense. So let's go to a little bit of grammar. Today we're going to talk about passive voice, relative clauses, and formal linking. So passive voice. Passive voice is constantly used in legal English. Why? Because it focuses on the action, not the actor, not the person who is completing the act, action. For example, the notice shall be served within 14 days. Instead of, you must serve the notice, or party A must serve the notice. The goods are deemed to have been delivered. Instead of, we consider the goods delivered. The agreement is governed by English law. Not English law governs the agreement. Relative clauses. Why do we need it? We use it to expand sentences to make them better, more formal, and more interesting instead of using a few shorter ones. Yeah. So it is to define or limit which part, a document, or term is meant. Yeah. So basically, we have defining, no commas. Yep. The party who fails to notify. Yeah, no commas. We have non-defining with commas. The supplier, which is incorporated in Ukraine, shall do something, which is used for things who or that for people. Basically, that is kind of universal in some sort. Yep. But also here are some nuances. How to understand what kind of clause you can use. You need to use. Basically, defining clauses, they are essential. They have important meaning. They have really important meaning, so we cannot omit them. We cannot delete them. That's why we do not use any commas. Because if we delete them from the sentence, the meaning of the sentence is going to change drastically. And in defining clauses, we can use that. But non-defining clauses are such clauses that have the information that is not necessary. We can delete it. We can plug it out, and the meaning is still going to be quite the same. It is not essential information. And in non-defining clauses with commas, you cannot use that. Okay? And let's go on some formal linking words. Connect conditions, exceptions, and consequences. Pursuant to, in accordance with or under. Notwithstanding, despite, regardless of. Subjective, conditional upon, provided that. Save as, except as, unless. Hereunder, under this agreement. Thereof, of that, of those. Okay? And key patterns for reading complex contracts. Identifying the structure. Recitals means background. Definitions means meaning. Operative, binding terms, schedules, details, specs. Spotting the obligation. Shall means obligation. Must, strict requirement. May, permission or right. Will, future fact or commitment. Again, I'm really skimming through these, but you can pause the video and read them in detail, okay? Then finding the exception. Notwithstanding. Exception. Save as, unless stated. Subject to, conditional on, unless otherwise, except if. Here is a little model contract clause. Let's read and analyze it. Whereas the company, hereinafter referred to as a client, wishes to engage the consultant to provide strategic advisory services, and whereas the consultant has the expertise and capacity to provide such services on the terms set out herein, now therefore, in consideration of the mutual covenants set out hereunder, the parties agree as follows. Pursuant to clause 3, the consultant shall deliver a written report within 30 days of the commencement date. Notwithstanding the foregoing, the client may, subject to 7 days written notice, request that delivery be extended. Save as expressly provided herein, no amendment to this agreement shall be valid unless made in writing. Here what we need to notice. Hereinafter referred to as how defined terms are introduced. Thus, why and how our defined terms are introduced. In consideration of the mutual covenant set out hereunder, it is the operative trigger for the agreement, right? Pursuant to clause 3. It is formal linking, and in plain English it would be as stated in clause 3. Notwithstanding the foregoing, despite what was just said, subject to 7 days written notice, conditional upon giving notice first. So basically, if they give notice, then it is possible. Save as expressly provided herein, except as stated in this agreement. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Here are some common mistakes. Notwithstanding of the above. Notwithstanding is never going to be followed by of, so it's better to say notwithstanding the above. Pursuant of clause 4, payment is due. Pursuant to clause 4, never of. The application which is set in clause 2. The application which is set out, not just set. Hereunder means under this clause. Hereunder refers to the whole document, not just one clause. So hereunder means under this agreement. The contract who governs this matter. The contract that or which governs this matter. Yeah. So that or which is for thanks. Yeah. Well, wonderful. So here is a little quick check that you can do during the video. I'm going to give it 20 seconds. You need to pause the video because I'm pretty sure you cannot complete this task in 20 seconds, let's be honest. And you need to match the formal legal phrase to its plain English meaning. And then we will check your answers. And I'm giving you 20 seconds starting now. And your time is almost over. Your time is over. So your time is up. Let's go. Pursuant to, in accordance with, and notwithstanding, despite, regardless of, save as, except as stated. Hereunder, under this agreement, thereof, of that relating to. Great job. And then you have a little speaking challenge, plain English rewriting. You don't really have to rewrite. You can just say it. Yep. Here is a clause. Can you please reformulate it to plain, clear English? The meaning should be the same, but can you use simpler language so that a non-lawyer could understand what is going on in here, okay? And in the comments, can you tell us what is the most confusing legal phrase or word you have encountered in a contract in English? It can be even from today's lesson, it can be in a contract, and you can share it below so I can pick them all up and talk about them in our future lessons, okay? And then the last part is a workbook in here. I'm not going to show you any exercises, any tasks. If you want them, if you feel the need to learn this topic a bit more, you can go to our Telegram and search up this routine stance or scan this QR code and find the worksheet in there. And the answers to those tasks are also going to be in there. Okay? Well, I really hope that you have a great day. Please take care of yourselves and see you next time. Stay safe.